Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management. Daniel Stallings, financial advisor. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors, LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC, a broker/dealer, and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
This week on Pop of Culture, People in Places. We'll talk to the artist behind a new collaborative exhibit celebrating the people of Marion.
One of the artist duos, Peter and Emily Troutner, their one-year-old took some of his first steps across this map of Marion with ink on his feet.
And we'll talk to a graphic designer and artist in Pendleton about his new mural.
We'll also get the latest on how arts funding cuts are affecting Hoosier arts organizations.
That's coming up. Places, people!
Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management, the Innovation Connector, and from you. With state and federal money eliminated, you are the difference in keeping local programming on the air at IPR. Become a member today at indianapublicradio.org.
From IPR, this is Pop of Culture. I'm Maya Doss.
And I'm Michelle Kinsey. Welcome, Maya. So happy to be sitting next to you for Pop of Culture this week.
Ditto. Coming up later this hour, I'll ask Leonski Crosby, what are you working on?
But first, a new art exhibit at the Kennedy Art Center in Marion, Indiana, is turning the idea of place into something deeply personal and interactive. It's called People Make Place, and it's the work of Indiana Wesleyan University art professor Henrik Söderström. And Henrik is in the Pop of Culture studios with us today. Thank you so much for joining us to tell us all about this exhibit.
Thanks so much for having me.
First of all, we've got to start with the name. I love the title of this exhibit, People Make Place. Where did that all come from? How did that start?
Oh, that's a great question. To me, it's a really beautiful reality that human life is just this amazing, I would say, miracle that even exists. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about place and where I am, I've moved a lot in my life. And one of the most beautiful constants has just been the people who are in that place. And when I've had the opportunity to move from, Alabama to Indiana or from New York to Indiana, the people who have come with me, my family, have just been this beautiful constant. And this reality that what makes a place exist as it is this stunning reality of human life has just gone really deep into me. So been interested in that for a while. And then good, sorry.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I love the whole idea of you moving from place to place and really seeing and understanding what makes that place unique through its people, and then deciding to kind of make that an exhibit, kind of show it off, so to speak, in Grant County. So you've been developing this project for several years. Can you talk a little bit about that process and when you knew that now was the time to really do it, to put it together?
That's a great question. I think Wendy Puffer, who runs the Kennedy Art Center, is the senior design executive at Marion Design Co. She's been a longtime friend and just amazing design colleague over the years. Mm-hmm. And so she was a huge part of the encouragement to me of kind of turning these threads of thoughts into something tangible.
Yeah.
So we had years ago joked about the idea of like a story bank. StoryCorps is this beautiful ongoing project, and Humans of New York is another just great project in that vein.
Yeah.
And so Marion Design Co. started actually in an old bank downtown, and we had the vault when we first started in there. And one of the ideas we joked about at the beginning was like, oh, we don't have a whole lot of money in this community, and at Marion Design Co. at the time, definitely not a lot of money. But what we could fill the vault with is all these stories and testimonies and threads of life for people. And so what if we just turn that vault into like the thing that holds the most valuable thing in the whole city, which is the stories connected to humans who live here. So a lot of it came from those conversations. And then I just got interested in these scraps of paper that were kind of indexes of a story, like the concert bill you have, the receipt that your spouse scribbled a note to you on, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's what makes, I think, this exhibit so unique are the materials used to tell the story. And you call them memory-rich papers. And you mentioned ticket stubs, some other things, letters, wedding invitations. What was it that made you think this was the way to tell this story for, Grant County, the residents of Grant County?
I think it's the way that, especially in the moment we live in, where so much communication is over text messages, which are fine.
Yeah.
But recognizing the value of a handwritten note, of a piece of paper, and thinking about how often this simple material that's been around for ages of paper, it's like a plant turned into this thing that we just toss in the recycle bin, but it's the substrate for so much deep interaction. And like if my wife sends me a text message, it means a lot. But if she hand writes me a note and leaves it on the kitchen table in the morning, that is so much more meaningful. Yeah. And it's not that the note's different. It's just that it's on this thing that, she touched this piece of paper and she found a pen. And you can, if you know someone really well, tell what mood they're in by their handwriting. It's a substrate for humanness.
Yeah, absolutely. You described the exhibit as kind of a game of telephone. Could you explain that?
Yeah, it's this long rambling process. I'll try to be short. The idea was to get these pieces of paper donated, and lots of people across the city donated these pieces of paper that some were very meaningful. I was surprised they were willing to part with them.
Yeah.
And they knew in advance the process that these pieces of paper were going to get photographed.
Okay.
And then put into a machine called a Hollander beater machine. That's an old English machine that turns originally cotton rags or existing paper into new handmade paper. So then the second telephone booth is all these scraps of paper get ground up, turned into new pulp, and then turned into new sheets of paper. And you could see little bits and pieces of the original paper peeking through, like an E or part of a graphic on a wedding invitation. And then those pieces of paper were handed off to Tashima Davis, who's a wonderful artist and teacher in Marion. And she worked with her middle school students, gave them these sheets of handmade paper, and they drew on them with images of what makes Marion home. And then those got scanned and then digitally collaged together with the original scans of the ticket stubs, the receipts, the paint chips, and then those digital collages, which I was seeing as kind of maps of Marion, but visual maps of the people here.
Yes.
Those got passed on to this amazing team of 6 local artists who embellished them by hand and turned them into these richer, deeper maps of Marion. So they drew into them with stories, with one of the artist duos, Peter and Emily Troutner. Their 1-year-old took some of his first steps across this map of Marion with ink on his feet. And so his feet are on it. And then they wrote stories about their house in the shape of the footprint of their house over the top of it. So these maps were created. So it's this game of telephone that goes from the original pieces of paper that people donated all the way to these kind of multi-layered maps of our city.
Wow. And when did that process start, when you asked for these materials, these rich materials like ticket stubs and wedding invitations? And when was that ask? I'm just curious the amount of time.
That was at least a couple of years ago. That, Marion Design Co. kindly let me put out a little collection box with an explanation of what this was. And one of my design students at the time, Josie Schauer, who is still in Grant County, she's one of the designers for Taylor University's marketing now. She helped put a whole identity system for this project together, and she created a map of the whole process, which would tell people what's going to happen to your piece of paper when you turn it in.
Wow. You mentioned kind of, the baby steps, and now I'm picturing in my head what that could look like, and I cannot wait to see it in person. What are some other things that when you think of this exhibit or as it was being put up on display, what were some of the moments, the things that stood out to you the most in making this exhibit happen?
One of the most beautiful pieces of paper that was turned in to me was a green envelope. And I don't know who put it in the box, but it was opened and then it was empty. And on the outside, you could see who it was to. It looked like a birthday envelope. So it kind of puts you into detective mode. Like, who is this? What was this for? So reading this envelope seems like related to a birthday, but it's empty. And the envelope was given, not the card. And it just seemed like this beautiful, like, vignette of a moment of maybe that card is still pinned to a refrigerator.
Yes.
And here's the envelope. I could part with this.
Yes, that's exactly what the first thing that came to my mind was like, I've got to keep the card because this means so much to me, but I am willing to give you the envelope from what was probably a very special moment.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, that's a big ask for residents to give you a glimpse into their personal lives like that. Were you surprised with the response?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised with the variety of types of paper. Like that envelope was put in the box, and then also there's a really beautifully designed concert poster folded in 4 so it would fit into the box. Yes. So just the range of stories that seem to be attached to all these sheets of paper really surprised me.
Yeah.
You know?
And the exhibit opened. What day did the exhibit open?
I don't remember.
So it was very recent.
A few weeks ago.
Yes,
yeah.
A few weeks ago. And what I do know is that, this is obviously something that you want to see and feel and touch and be a part of. I'm not alone in that feeling because I heard that this was one of the biggest openings the Art Center has ever seen. Is that right?
They said so. It's really cool. I think probably part of that is just that there are so many people connected to the show. So there was the Game of Telephone project, and then there are these big paintings with old-fashioned telephones attached to them,
nice.
And a small army of elementary school kids and preschool kids came in and drew flowers all over those. So it's like bouquets for Marion. So all those kids, like their families were connected, and everyone who donated paper. There were a number of artists. Will Carpenter, Andrew Condrat were also artists who had portraits and photos of houses in the show. So just lots of people connected to it. A couple other amazing students, Addie Bordeaux and Maddie Seitz, did all the design work for it. So I think everybody just brought their friends.
Yeah, that is a lot of collaboration. Yeah. That's wonderful. And you mentioned kind of like the game of telephone and making this happen. And you kind of just alluded to it, but talk about the actual telephones as part of the exhibit.
Yeah, that really started with a friend and coworker, Amanda Dyer, who found an old phone that was replaced now, I think, sadly, by a phone in a laptop.
Yes.
And it's got the real buttons that I remember growing up, the sound they would make, and how much fun it was to push them. So she had placed this on my desk, to save it from the trash. And it just got me thinking, because it was next to a painting, how often looking at a painting is this kind of individual experience, which is great. But then I was thinking, what if a painting was always more like that moment you're standing next to someone and you're not afraid to talk too loud in the art gallery, and you can like chat with someone about a painting. And then I thought, what if there were phones on the painting and you could call someone? So a really wonderful electrical engineering student, Shadrach Oduma, helped me wire up these phones. I would have been helpless trying to do it, but he helped me wire them together and wire lights into them so you could talk to someone from one painting to another painting in the basement, just picking up the phone.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the overall experience. What are you hoping when someone walks in to the Kennedy Art Center? What are you hoping they get out of that experience, Henrik?
I think primarily it would be that they would leave the gallery with a sense of how genuinely amazing it is that everyone around you walking around is alive, is a human, is just loaded with meaning and story and reflection of how they were made. That magic would just be ignited in people. Yeah.
That's lovely. So this exhibit is on display how long?
Until January this year.
January, okay.
Yeah.
And people can go to the Kennedy Art Center website for more information on exhibit hours, all of that good stuff. Wonderful. Well, thank you for coming in and sharing your story with us today.
Of course. Thanks so much.
Henrik Söderström is an artist and a professor at Indiana Wesleyan University.
In December, you'll be able to see Pendleton's art and culture community on our sister station, Ball State PBS, as part of their Now Entering series. We're talking to some of the artists featured before that premiere. Here's IPR's Stephanie Weekman.
Aaron McDermott is a visual artist, paint, photography, and graphic design. We'll hear from him in Ball State PBS's Now Entering Pendleton as one of 5 featured muralists in the town's downtown. And he's vice president of the Pendleton Artists Society. Aaron, welcome to Pop of Culture.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be here.
Let's start with kind of the big question. Tell us a little bit about your artistic style.
Ooh, that's a hard question. It's hard to put into words kind of what your own style is, at least for me. I'm drawn to nature. I find nature to be very healing. So a lot of my work is scenic pieces. I'm drawn to moments or shadows that I can get really fixated on. So either I'll highlight that moment in that pinpoint, or sometimes it just helps make me feel inspired. So I typically tend to look for those visual cues in nature, or even how it might interact with something that a human's built, like a building.
Okay. For nature, is it specifically Indiana or Midwest nature, or is it nature anywhere you go?
I'm a Hoosier. I've lived here all my life, so most of the time I'm inspired by the Indiana landscape, and I know it can be flat, but I can find beauty in that. I've grown up around cornfields. There's so much color if you sit there and look. I do occasionally travel, and I have painted some desert scenes. I do find the desert to be just as inspirational. It does help that it's a little warmer there and sunny, but I stick to Indiana mostly. I find the trees and changes of season. It's just so much fun to watch and paint different things when those are happening.
I'm a farmer's daughter from Illinois, but still in the Midwest. And so I get what you mean. A peaceful cornfield in the summer and the fall especially says something to me. Your biography also says that you've been using the medium of photography since you were a kid. What kind of spoke to you about photography versus, also painting that you do now?
Yeah, so I've always been around photography. My parents have always had a camera. I got my first little plastic camera. I was very young. It's just always been something I've enjoyed doing whenever I've been alone or with friends or family. It's just been something I was drawn to. I also find it interesting to maybe stop and look at something and say, what can I do to make someone stop and look at it and say, this is something I wasn't expecting to see a photograph of.
That's beautiful. I love that. You also have a degree in graphic design. You've added that to your art. I noticed the mural that we're going to talk about is more graphic design style. Most people think of corporate logos when they think of graphic design. So what else can be done with it? And is the process different when you're thinking in a graphic design mind versus photography versus paint?
Yeah, so graphic design is quite broad, and that kind of snuck in for me. I didn't know graphic design was a career. I was probably a junior in high school. I loved using a computer. I was graphic designing. I just didn't know there was a career. So when I discovered that, I went to study it. Graphic design is so much more than logos. In fact, to be honest, the logo is my least favorite thing to make.
Okay.
You mentioned corporate. Corporate logos tend to get so nitpicked, and that's when you lose the creativity. But when it comes to graphic design, in terms of my process, I tend to look at it the same way. It's a little bit different because at least I'm using a computer. I can be a little bit more quick in what I want to come up with. If I'm working with a painting, especially, I will most likely sketch something out. I might do a little bit of a study with some watercolor or like a small oil painting just to kind of see what's happening. When it comes to graphic design, like the mural I was working on, that kind of comes up, you get your ideas in your head. I had to get that on paper, and I wanted to really do something that was going to give an homage to the Midwest where we are and also the town of Pendleton.
Nice. So let's talk about that mural. You're one of the featured guests, and Ball State PBS is now entering Pendleton, the latest in a series that shines a spotlight on great local towns. Our friends talked with you about the mural that you created for Pendleton's Gallery Walkway, unveiled in May. So since we're on the radio, can you describe what your mural looks like for us?
Yes, the mural that I created for this mural walkway, I have it right here. Hang on a moment. How do you describe something visually?
I know, right?
Yeah, so the mural that I designed it features prominently in the middle is a butterfly, and it's almost like a patch quilt. And its primary colors, I wanted to pay homage to, you see a lot of quilts designs on barns in the Midwest. I wanted to pay homage to that, and the butterfly to me represents transformation. The mural walkway itself is a transformation.
And the primary colors that you used were very striking. Most of the time when I see quilts, either in murals or actual quilts, they're, the warmer side of colors or the cooler side of colors, but they're not the bright primary colors. So your colors stand out compared to the other murals on that same wall.
Yeah, the colors actually I chose there from the Pendleton Artists Society logo. Our original brief for that wall was kind of to focus on just the Artist Society. So that's where I got that. And I ended up actually sticking with those once it changed, just because they were so vibrant.
Tell me a little bit about the Pendleton Artists Society, since we're talking about it, since you're vice president. How did it begin?
Yeah, the Pendleton Artists Society began, there was a small group. This was before I'd moved to the area, but there was a small group of artists looking for a way to bring art to the community. And it started with around 20 members. That was, I believe, in 2014. And they started doing shows. They had a small building they used. And from there it grew. We actually moved into the building that we're in now, 119 State Street. We moved there in 2017. They did a lot of work to renovate the space. And so now we have great classrooms where we offer several classes. We do 11 shows a year there, lots of community events. So we're always doing something.
As an artist yourself, how does it help to have a local art supporting organization that you can turn to?
Yeah, having access to the Pendleton Artists Society has been great. I had moved after college and I'd lost, that physical, like being close to all my friends in the art world. So just being around other artists, if you need an opinion on something, I mean, everyone's nice. They'll give you their critiques. No one's going to tear anyone down and say, like, you are a horrible artist. I think just having that sense of community, I've improved so much just kind of absorbing stuff from being around people, looking at art. It's such a great asset to have in Pendleton.
Oh, that's wonderful. So going back to your art, where can we find your art in person and where can we find it online?
Yes, in person, I am always trying to show art in the Pendleton Artists Society gallery space, which is Gallery 119. If it's not on the wall, I do have some in the gift store. The open space Art About the Land show opens in Muncie and Anderson. I'll have work in Muncie there.
Nice.
And online right now, I just post on my Instagram. My Instagram is Aaron McDermott.
Aaron McDermott is a Madison County artist and vice president of the Pendleton Artists Society. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's been a pleasure.
You can hear more from Aaron McDermott on Now Entering Pendleton. The Pendleton community gets a sneak peek on the evening of November 20th. Then you can watch it live on Ball State PBS on December 4th at 8 p.m. More details can be found at ballstatepbs.org. I'm Stephanie Weekman.
In spring of 2025, the Trump administration announced it would begin canceling grants from the National Endowment for the Arts, or NEA. The NEA is the largest arts and arts education funder in the nation, and the cuts are affecting hundreds of organizations nationwide. Domenica Bongiovanni is the arts and creativity reporter for the Indianapolis Star. She's been speaking with arts organizations across central Indiana, and she spoke with our producer, Luke Jones.
Domenica, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you remind us how we got here, both nationally and in Indiana specifically?
Well, I would say, that did start in the spring of 25. In many ways, I think some arts organizations were anticipating a change earlier in the year, as they saw, who was elected. President Donald Trump has proposed eliminating the NEA. Also, in kind of the meantime, starting in the spring, I think is when a lot of arts organizations started to feel some of those changes. So, funding that they had been promised from direct grants from the NEA started to be canceled or, rescinded in some cases. And so that caused some uncertainty because they had made some plans around how they were going to use that funding. Of course, they had applied for that. And so that's caused some upheaval, and a lot of organizations have pivoted and had to change what their plans were because of that.
Yeah. I know you spoke to Jenny Werner of the New Harmony Project. We've had her on this show as well. One thing that she said that I think people might not know is that for arts grants, you spend the money up front and then you get reimbursed on the back end. How many organizations did you talk to that had already done that, like been promised a grant and then had the money rescinded from them?
Well, there were a couple of different scenarios, I would say, among the organizations that I talked to. What I wanted to do was to find organizations who had been in a little bit different scenarios to kind of present some of the nuance to readers of how organizations have been navigating this. So, you mentioned Jenny Werner and the New Harmony Project, and in that case, she was, had applied for and received, $40,000 grant from the NEA, and that was withdrawn, and so she had to figure out how to kind of fill that hole. And what she did was just take a future program that she was going to do later in the year and kind of parcel out that program a little bit more slowly, give themselves a little bit more time to fund that, and then use the money that they needed so that the New Harmony Project could keep its promises to the writers that it had invited to that play development retreat. I would say that, in the case of the Cabaret, they were in a different position in that, you're absolutely right. They applied for it, it received the $20,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. It arrived as a reimbursement after they submitted their expenses. So, in essence, they're being held accountable and spending the money how they said they would spend it. They're reimbursed, the $20,000 is back in their bank account, but then they receive notice that that grant was canceled. And so, the leaders at the Cabaret told me, we were thinking, hey, wait a minute, do we have to now give them back, return this $20,000? And so, I know they had a little bit of back and forth with the NEA, and as it all kind of turned out, they got to keep that money. So I think that, there have been the grants withdrawn, as you mentioned, but also there's just been some confusion overall in the process, where it wasn't withdrawn, but it was very unpredictable there for a little bit.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned the Cabaret applied for 2026, but also told you that they weren't banking, no pun intended, banking on that money to support their upcoming season.
Yeah, that's correct. I think given the unpredictability of how the grants went, this and their experience earlier this year, they went ahead and applied to see if they could get that money, but they, were also asking themselves, what do we do if we don't get this money? So they're trying to, as other arts organizations are trying to shore up some other avenues of funding to be able to, close those close those financial gaps and, be able to do the programming that they promise to audiences.
Yeah. I did want to talk about, we've been talking a lot like nationally, but I learned in your piece that Indiana's state arts funding lags behind nationally. We are apparently 41st in the US for per capita arts spending. Can you talk a little bit about what you found in your reporting and how arts organizations are coping with that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. That number that you cited is from a legislative appropriations preview for fiscal year 2026. And that is according to the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies. And so, I would say that Indiana has not been known as a state that spends a lot of public dollars on arts funding. So in many cases, arts organizations were not coming into this past year thinking that, the state's going to skyrocket to the top of that list. But they do know, and they have depended on those Indiana Arts Commission grants and they know that money is there. They have good relationships, with the commission. And I think a lot of them said they felt like the commission kind of understands what they're doing. But yeah, it did go down to, 41st in the US per capita state arts agency appropriations. And, even Indianapolis as a city, according to the Indie Arts Council information that I received, it also ranks very, very low when compared to peer cities. And I would say that's been a story of Indiana arts public funding for a while.
Yeah. Okay, last question. We talk to a lot of arts organizations on this show. It is an arts and culture show. And I find at least that arts organizations often have an interest in putting a positive spin or an upbeat outlook on changes they're making, sounding like, we've had cuts here and cuts there, but we're making this change and we're excited about it. But it feels like there's a lot happening at once. And I wonder if there's just, because you speak to a lot of arts organizations across Indiana, I wonder if you've just been getting a general overall feel from those organizations.
Well, I would say that by their very nature, arts organizations are very good at creative problem solving. I think we saw this during COVID. I think that arts organizations often, speaking very broadly, they're often balancing telling a story of, hey, it's not easy to run a theater, you're running on thin margins. It's not easy to put on a concert, but, we know what we're doing. And, I think this is a message, especially, to their donors and supporters, for them to also say at the same time, we know what we're doing. The dollars that you give us, we're going to put to good use, and we're going to make this art and we're going to make it well. So I would say that they're always balancing those two stories, the difficulties with the way that they problem solve. I would say that, in this current time, it's a different problem for them. They're so good at problem solving that most of your general audience members are not going to see how they close the gaps. If maybe they have one less show on the season, for example, or if maybe the shows that they're putting on use maybe, let's say, 3 actors per show instead of 7, so they're going to be making those little tweaks, and they're going to do it in a way that's, really high quality work, but that you're not going to see the behind the scenes tweaks they made to make the numbers work, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Domenica Bongiovanni is the arts and creativity reporter at the Indy Star. Her recent piece is titled Arts Organizations Navigate a New Landscape as Public Funding is Cut. Domenica, thanks so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
A bell atop the Madison County Courthouse is ringing again after more than 5 decades of silence. IPR's Thomas Ouellette reports on what it took to bring this historic landmark back to life.
County Commissioner Rick Gardner helped lead the effort to refurbish the bell. He says Madison County doesn't have a lot of historic landmarks anymore, and it's important to maintain the ones that still stand.
Well, I think history is very important. I don't think we ever want to forget our history.
The bell was sent out for modification almost a year ago and was finally installed above the Madison County Government Building last week. According to the Madison County Historic Society, it was originally installed in the county's courthouse in 1885. That building was demolished in 1972. The bell was set up in the new courthouse the next year. but because it was designed to ring manually, it stayed silent. Now Gardner says it's been wired to the clock on the Madison County Government Building and will ring with it on the hour. Repairs and alterations to connect and sync both total around $38,000. Thomas Ouellette, IPR News.
This is Pop of Culture. I'm Michelle Kinsey.
And I'm Maya Doss. It's time to ask another artist, what are you working on? Today on the show, we have Leonski Crosby. Leon, we've got to know, what are you working on?
Hey, how's it going? It's Leonski here. I'm working on working with the Indie Arts Council, Fisher's Arts Council specifically. I painted 4 paintings so far for it, but I'm doing a Halloween collection. So I usually don't do Halloween, so this is my first really shot at it, and I'm having a good time.
That's so cool. The last time we had you on the show, last year, you were talking about art you had created for the eclipse, and we just had to have you back so our listeners could hear more about your artwork outside of that celestial event. It's so awesome you're doing a new Halloween collection. Out of those projects you've completed lately, what's one you're really proud of?
I'm really proud of Heacon Park. It's the mural I did with the parks bathrooms. I did with the parks department in Muncie, and me and my team of Michelle Cass, Raven Murphy, Jay York. He was awesome. So I had a lot of people help me on these murals, and Heacon Park's in my neighborhood, and I drive by it every day. I love what I did. I love what I did there.
I love what you did as well. I saw those murals and I thought they were awesome. For our listeners, will you visually describe what you did in those murals?
I wanted to match the theme of the park, nature, the river. And so me and my team decided we're going to do a river theme. And so if you go around the bathroom, you'll see 2 turtles, and those are local turtles, pictures we took on walking along the river. We got cranes, and that was the local crane that we saw walking along the river. And so we took inspiration for all the entire piece using the river.
That's amazing. The White River is a huge integral part of our local ecological layout.
Yeah, love that place.
So I'd also love to hear about maybe one of the visuals of a Halloween painting you did that's going to be in the show.
I did a raven on a tombstone-shaped canvas, and it had some roses on it. I did it in a very old school Gothic way. My wife really loved it. She was kind of a big part of me painting this collection to begin with. She was like, "Hey, let's try your hand at something else."
So you have a crow on a skull and around a tombstone. What other imagery is included in this Halloween?
I have
works?
a couple different kind of witches. I got one and then I have my cat. I use my cats at home as my models, and I paint cats. And so I've been kind of into that recently. I love my models. I cuddle them.
That's so sweet. Cats are the best.
Yeah.
You always have such an insane volume of artwork that you share with the community, and it seems like you're always creating. Do you create art every day?
Mostly. Almost every day. It's when other people are watching TV and other people are doing other things. We're all just sitting there. I'm probably painting.
As a fellow artist, I understand.
Yeah. It's nothing, it's how I pay attention sometimes. So if I'm really, sometimes if it looks like I'm drawing, I'm not paying attention. I'm actually paying more attention, because I can hear you better if I'm drawing for some reason.
Absolutely. Leon, how long have you been a practicing artist?
My entire life. My mom said I would fill the living room with just random pieces of paper of just random drawings I've done all day long. And it's just been a thing. I read comic books for the first time when I was maybe 3 or 4. And it was kind of on from there.
So would you say you have any advice for young artists, maybe to always be drawing?
Oh, yeah. Just keep going. Keep practicing. Practice things that you're scared of. So that's one thing my wife does. She challenges me to do things I'm afraid to do. And I feel like that's where some of my best art comes from. It's the things I was I don't know if I can do that. And then I pull it off, and I'm really happy what I got. So you can probably pull it off. Just try it 30 times.
No, that's great advice. I was telling someone today that going back to Ball State was so helpful, because that outside pressure sometimes to do something you're not necessarily comfortable to do can be the biggest source of growth.
Yes.
If you were to give a descriptor for our listeners of your art style, I know you said you've had some graffiti influence, some comic influence. What would you say is like the takeaway people would get from your art?
I'm hoping like colorful, eye-popping, like graffiti. Like sometimes there might be a message in there, but yeah, I want them to walk away with like, you know, maybe little bit of inspiration.
I definitely feel inspired.
Yeah, I want to inspire other artists, really. So
I think you do a great job of that.
Awesome.
So when you're creating art, you said you will sometimes do it while watching TV. Do you have an art studio? Do you make like a studio practice?
I do have an art studio and it's out in my shed. But I make my living room my art studio. So it's all of my supplies are nearby. It's right in the living room. We've created space for it so it to like fit in the living room. So like it's a really cool practice. But yeah, my living room is my art studio. Sometimes I get some paint places I'm not supposed to, but hey.
It's your house, right?
Exactly.
I'm really curious because we've talked about a few of the more themed projects you've done, but I've seen some of your other work. What are main sources of inspiration? What do you like to create?
So a long time ago, I was a graffiti artist when I was a kid. I actually saw a graffiti artist. I found out who he was, went and asked him, will you teach me? And he was like a really cool guy. And because I wanted to know how it was done. And so I went and tracked him down and learned and kind of followed him. And he showed me how it was done. And that inspiration has kind of got me where I am today.
I can totally see that in all of your murals too. It's almost like the, I guess, technically more legal form of graffiti is getting to do your murals.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing that you've made a river style theme for the murals at Westside Park. You also did murals for Heacon Park and for McCullough. Will you tell us a bit about those?
So McCullough Park was really based off the playground set. Me and my team really wanted to match those colors and make it really kind of colorful, make it colorful, vibrant, stay for a long time. And so, we really wanted to match that playground set, and I think we really pulled it off.
Tell us about Heacon Park and maybe the sports influence of those murals.
Okay, so actually, I worked with the Parks Department, and we did some things with the teens that summer. And so some of the teens came out, had them all kind of give up designs and give up ideas. And some of their ideas were to make it sports, make this, make it about the park. And the park, there's a lot of basketball here. And so some of the kids, they kind of came up with the idea. I designed it, and we all put it together.
That is so awesome. I feel so lucky to have such an involved artist on the show with us today. Leon, I've noticed that you are able to work at a large multitude of scales in a large number of subject matter. Well, what are some of the mediums you like to express those things in?
I really like acrylic paint because it dries fast. And so I can work on 3 or 4 paintings at a time. Oil, you don't have that luxury. And so but I like acrylic paint for the speed, accuracy. I use acrylic paint even on murals. So most people would think it's spray paint. It's not. It's all hand painted, every inch.
Wow, that's so cool. I also love to work with acrylic. I think it's also really like graphic and bold. And sometimes that flatness is a good thing.
Yes.
I tend to ask more of my peers who are just recently graduated or in school, like what their big term goals are. But I would love to hear from you. What is a huge goal or like sky's the limit goal you have for yourself as an artist?
Just to keep painting, actually. I like painting every day. There's no really goal. It's kind of like, it's just fluid. I'm just happy to be able to paint and pick up my brush every day after work and get home and enjoy my night every night.
Stop. That's so sweet.
My big goal is just to keep painting.
I love that. I love that answer.
The muse got me.
Yes, your wife and your family.
Yes.
Well, we have been so happy to have you back on the show, Leonski. Thank you for sharing with us what you've been working on.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
It's that time. It's time for the arts calendar. Are you ready, Maya?
I am. Let's do it first time.
Yes, your first time out. Here we go. Open Space Art About the Land opens Friday, November 8th at Minnetrista Museum and Gardens. Since 2001, this exhibit has been encouraging artists from all over the state to draw inspiration from the land around us. From painters to sculptors and beyond, this exhibition presents a diverse showcase of creative talent. The exhibit continues through January 4th, 2026.
Ball State's University Singers will present its fall concert at 3 and 6 p.m. Sunday, November 9th in Circe's Performance Hall on campus. The concert will feature songs of faith, hope, laughter, and love.
Oh, that sounds lovely. The 25th annual LGBT Film Festival kicks off Friday, November 7th in Indianapolis. Since its founding, the festival has showcased hundreds of films from around the world, sparking conversations, building connections, and celebrating the power of LGBTQ+ storytelling. More info at IndieLGBTFilmFest.com.
On Tuesday, November 11th, the Barefoot Movement will perform at Ball State's Pruis Hall. The music will begin at 7:30 p.m. The Barefoot Movement integrates bluegrass, blues, folk, rock, country, and pop into its music, original songs, and reimagined cover tunes with tight 3-part harmonies.
I'm wondering, should I be barefoot as well if I go to this concert? It's going to be a little chilly. Maybe I'll just take my shoes off once I get there. Maybe that's the thing. Anderson's Main Stage Theater will present Little Women, the musical, now through November 16th. Based on Louisa May Alcott's life, Little Women follows the adventures of sisters Jo, Meg, Beth, and Amy March. Info at mainstagetheater.org.
And here on Pop of Culture, you're listening to us, Little Women. Everyone is welcome to the Astronomy Slam, Saturday, November 8th, at the Charles W. Brown Planetarium. Ball State students will have 10 minutes to share a piece of the universe with you using planetarium visuals in the most creative way possible, in an attempt to capture the title, Astronomy Slam Champion. Audience members will vote for the winner. The slam begins at 6:30 p.m.
I hear this is an awesome event. It moves really quickly and has obviously some really cool visuals. Christmas in Pendleton. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, really? Yes, really. Christmas in Pendleton is Saturday, November 8th from noon to 6 p.m. Themed Christmas around the world, you'll find Falls Park filled with the magic of the world's unique celebration. There will be train rides, reindeer, and face painting for the kiddos. Snap a photo with Santa and the newly crowned Snow Queen and browse more than 100 vendors. The day ends with a magical illuminated parade, a snowball fight at Falls Park, and a tree lighting. Do you have an event Pop of Culture listeners need to know about, holiday related or otherwise? Let us know at indianapublicradio.org/contact, then click Pop of Culture.
Or else.
Support for Pop of Culture comes from Stallings Wealth Management, the Innovation Connector, and from you. With state and federal money eliminated, you are the difference in keeping local programming on the air at IPR. Become a member today at indianapublicradio.org.
And that's our show. Our general manager is Phil Hoffman.
This week was produced by Luke Jones, whose mother would happily volunteer all his scraps of paper. With production assistance from Andrew Montavon.
Our audio fellow is Maya Doss. Our show was hosted by... Oh wait, that's me too. Maya Doss.
And me, Michelle Kinsey. Pop of Culture is a production from IPR on the campus of Ball State University.
Our show host was hosted by... Oh wait, that's me too. Maya Doss.
And me, Michelle Kinsey. Pop of Culture is a production from IPR on the campus of Ball State University. No, I thought you were going to have her do it again because so I just waited. It sounded like I wasn't thrilled at all. And me.